Hey, what up, guys? Coming to you with another What's Next. This is on reigning WBC Featherweight champion Gary Russell Jr. So Gary Russell returned in February and made a mandatory defense of his title against undefeated Mongolian fighter Tuxko Naimbayar. And he, pretty much outboxed and outclassed Naimbayar, whatever you want to call him. It was a clean 12-round unanimous decision. Naimbayar just couldn't seem to land more than one punch because Russell was just moving well and he was boxing well and he was just, pretty much picking them apart. But in later rounds, Naimbayar came on a little stronger, landed some good shots. But Russell, clean decision win. I had it about 8-4, 9-3 area. And, he successfully keeps his belt for, I believe that was his 5th straight successful defense. But he's also been fighting once a year since 2015. He doesn't like to fight a lot, because he wants big fights, but he can't seem to get them. Well, he said after the fight, and he actually said before the fight, that he was probably going to give up his belt and move up to 130 or 135 next. He just came out last week and confirmed that he's walking around at 143 right now, and he wants to fight as a lightweight going forward. Which is 135. So he's going to skip over 130 according to him, and he's going to move to 135. So he hasn't yet given up the WBC title, but I do believe he's moving up in weight. Honestly, I think he's done with 126. There's really no options, big name options, and champions that want to fight him. So, and the PBC doesn't have any good, featherweights. Their best guy, they threw at him. They threw Naimbayar at him, and Russell cleanly beat him. So there really isn't another option for Gary Russell at 126. So we're gonna look at the what's next for Gary Russell, but I'm gonna run it through the two divisions, 130 and 135. I know he said he's moving up to 135, but I think 130 is still possible. An outside option prior to this is a showdown with Abner Mares. I think is possible. Mares wants to return. Him and Russell have almost fought before, but they never got to that point. But I think him and Russell would be possible going forward. I think Mares would be into that. He could be into it at 126, but I think that's the only fight he stays at 126 for to defend his title for a 6th time. So let's see what's next for Gary Russell Jr. We start with the 130-pound division, the top 10. Number 1, reigning WBC champion Miguel Berchelt. Not going to happen. Berchelt has a mandatory defense against Oscar Valdez due next, so he's not going to look at Gary Russell. Number 2 is Joseph Diaz Jr., a rematch. Now, I'm sure Diaz would want to, right that wrong and get a win over Russell, but I don't think Diaz would. Well, Diaz has mandatories due anyways, so he wouldn't be able to look at a fight with Russell next anyway, so we're not even going to get into the big explanation. Diaz has a mandatory rematch against Tevin Farmer next, or a IBF mandatory title fight against Shavkat Rakimov next, so Gary Russell's not possible next. Number 3, is a long-awaited showdown with Leo Santa Cruz. Now, Santa Cruz keeps throwing out Russell's name. I think he might fight him at 130. And here's why I think that this fight could be very possible next is Santa Cruz has now laid the law down to Gervonta Davis that he wants Gervonta Davis next, but he's not moving up to 135 to fight him. He wants Davis to move down to 130 to fight him there. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but Gervonta Davis struggled his ass off to make weight at 130. His last fight, he was so undisciplined, he missed weight at 135 and had to come back and make it the 2nd time, and that was his debut at 135. So this guy has not been too disciplined on making weight. So for him to cut down and move back down to 130 to do it, I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think him and Santa Cruz are going to budge on their demands. I honestly think Santa Cruz is going to stay at 130 to defend his title, and that's why I think a fight with Russell is going to be very possible. Russell can say he's moving up to 135, but unless he lands the Davis fight at 135, I think he stays here at 130 and takes on Santa Cruz. He might take on Santa Cruz first and then move up to 135. So we don't know, and face Davis after that. But yeah, I think this fight's very possible, kind of flying under the radar right now. But I don't think Davis is going to move back down to 130 to face Santa Cruz, so that's going to open the door for Russell. We'll see. Number 4, Oscar Valdez, not going to happen. He is a mandatory due against Miguel Berchelt next. Number 5 is Rene Alvarado. I highly doubt it. That'd be Golden Boy working with the PBC, and I just don't think that's going to happen. Number 6 is Mickey Roman. Mickey Roman, I believe, is a promotional free agent. If Russell wanted to stop through at 130 and wait around to see if 135 is the next best option for him or gradually move up, I think Mickey Roman would be a great option. He's a good, solid former world title challenger, a veteran, been in the ring, been fighting for a while, and I think him and Russell would be a very good matchup on Showtime, and I wouldn't completely rule this one out, so we'll see. Number 7 is WBO champion Jamel Herring. Not going to happen next. Herring has Carl Frampton next, so no chance of this one. Number 8, Tevin Farmer. These two guys have talked shit against each other. I say why not make the fight, but Farmer has a mandatory rematch with Joseph Diaz Jr. for the IBF title next. Now, if for some reason that fight doesn't happen, I think Farmer would say, hey, let's get together and make the fight, but I don't know if the PBC and Matchroom get together to do this. I'm going to lean towards the less likely, even though I'd love to see it, and say this fight does not happen. Number 9 is former champ Andrew Cancio. He just signed with Top Rank. He's not going to have Bob Arum cross the street to face Russell next. I don't see it. And number 10 is Joan O'Carroll. He's with Matchroom. I just don't think it's a big enough fight for Russell, not a title, so I don't see this one happening. So now let's run through the top 10 at 135. At lightweight, that's the division Russell says he's going to next, so let's see. Even though he wants this, a rematch with unified lightweight champion Vasily Lomachenko, not going to happen. They fought in 2014. Lomachenko soundly beat him by a decision to capture the vacant featherweight title, WBO featherweight belt. And Lomachenko's facing Teofimo Lopez next anyway, so no chance. Number 2, Teofimo Lopez, the IBF champion. No way he fights Russell next. He's going after Lomachenko. That's almost for sure. Number 3 is Jorge Linares. Golden Boy working with the PBC, not going to happen. Plus, Linares is facing Ryan Garcia next, most likely. So I don't see this one at all. Number 4 is Luke Campbell. Looks like Luke Campbell's going to face Javier Fortuna still in for the interim title in a true final eliminator. So it's also Matchroom working with the PBC. I don't see it. Number 5, the undefeated lightweight champion Gervonta Davis, the regular champ. I can see this fight happening if Davis says no to moving down to 130 to face Santa Cruz. I think him and Russell makes a lot of sense. Russell's coming all the way up from 126 to be the smaller fighter. Davis would be the younger, stronger, bigger fighter. I say why not do it? And just to fill the time in, Russell's a good name to get on his resume, and I think this fight does have a strong chance of happening, considering Russell is saying he's moving up to 135 next anyways. Number 6, Richard Comey, not going to happen. He's with ESPN and Top Rank. Gary Russell's, their Top Rank and PBC aren't going to work together for this fight to happen. Number 7, Javier Fortuna. Fortuna is most likely going to be facing Luke Campbell in an interim title fight to get in line for the WBC title next. Not going to happen between him and Russell. Number 8 is Ivan Mendy. Wouldn't completely rule this out. He's a French contender, always looking for opposition. Russell would be moving up here, would probably still be the favorite, even though he'd move up in weight. But Mendy's a tough task, even though he's not a big name. He doesn't bring a world title to the table, so I don't think in his first fight he's going to face a no-name who can take punishment and doesn't have a world title, so I'm not seeing it. Number 9 is at lightweight is Lee Selby. He's another guy that's moved up from featherweight. He's a light punching guy, but Selby's fighting in an IBF title final eliminator next, so him and Russell aren't going to lock horns. And then number 10 is veteran Ricky Burns. Wouldn't completely rule this out. He is a Matchroom guy, but I think the PBC and Matchroom could work out a deal for this fight just because Burns is a former 3-weight champion. He doesn't punch hard, and he's an older fighter. And I think Russell and the PBC might pay him enough to work out a deal and get a fight done. Gonna lean towards the less likely, but I do think it can happen. So that's the 2 division. That's 130 and 135. The top 10s for Gary Russell. What do I think Gary Russell's gonna do next? Honestly, I have no fucking clue. But I really hope I really hope it's one of 3 big name options. First, I believe what would be smarter for him would be a Leo Santa Cruz fight at 130. I think that fight makes the most sense. Move up to 130, face Santa Cruz. That fight would be logical, but I only think that can happen if Gervonta Davis says, I'm not moving down to 130 to face Santa Cruz. So that's the only way I see that one happening. Second best option would be to move all the way to 135 and face Gervonta Davis. He's a big name. If Russell loses, he can move back down to 130 or 126 and say, hey, I took a shot. I moved up 2 weights just to get a big-time fight, and I went after it, and I came up short, but oh well. So that would be the second best option. And then the third would be Abner Mares, either at 126 or 130. Preferably for me, 126, because his title would still be on the line. That'd be meaningful. They're both, featherweights at heart, so the fight would make sense. It'd be easy to make the weight, but that would be the third best option. All of them big names. Now, outside options, Mickey Roman at 130 or Ricky Burns at 135, in my opinion, make the most sense. But those are outside options. But I just hope Gary Russell gets a decent fight next, and I hope he stays busy now, because this has been a guy who's only wanted to fight once a year for a while now. I hope he's going to fight 2 times a year to earn those big fights, to force those guys in the ring with him, and hopefully he gets what he wants. But that's it. That's what's next on my number 3 featherweight in the world, 126 pounds, Gary Russell Jr. Hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.